welcome all to Paleo-Profiles, Episode 3. I'm really glad that you all have been enjoying this series, and I hope to continue to educate, entertain, and inform you all. By starting with today's subject, we will be covering one of the most popular herbivores, the Triceratops. My first run-in with this particular dinosaur came from The Land Before Time when we met Sarah's dad. If I'm remembering correctly, The Land Before Time was my first introduction to dinosaurs period, but I was always attracted to the appearance of Triceratops. The Triceratops and his family known as the Ceratopses have what may be the most unique design for armored herbivores, at least in my opinion. Their frill ornamentations and designs are just amazing, and is actually useful in distinguishing one species of ceratopsid from another. However, I am not alone. Today I am joined by fellow YouTuber and J-Park Squad member, the Fossil Fool. He specializes in park designs in JWE and even has a few reviews on the channel I think you should take a gander at. But I've done enough talking. I'm going to let Fossil explain to you some things about today's subject matter.
Hi everyone, Matt here. I'm the Fossil Fool, and I'd like to thank Ghidorah for having me on today. I'm really looking forward to it. So, ceratopsids have so many cool and unique variants across the board, whether it's Nasutoceratops, Pentaceratops, Chasmosaurus, they're all great. But the Triceratops is potentially one of the most iconic dinosaurs ever, and it's definitely up there as one of my personal favourites. Triceratops is a genus of herbivorous dinosaur known as a ceratopsid that first appeared during the Maastrichtian stage of the late Cretaceous period around 68 million years ago in North America. The Maastrichtian stage is the last stage of the Cretaceous period, coming directly after the Campanian age, starting at about 72 million years ago and ending about 66 million years ago with the extinction of the dinosaurs by the 10-kilometre wide asteroid known as Chicxulub. As mentioned earlier, Triceratops are known as a ceratopsid. The ceratopsids, or ceratopsidae, are characterised by their unique look, which consists of beaks filled with rows of shearing teeth in the back of their jaws, elaborate nasal and or brow horns, and a thin parietal squamosal that extends back up and into the frill. The uniqueness of the Ceratopsidae family was so great that the family has been split into two different subfamily groups known as the Chasmosaurians and Centrosaurians.
I'm familiar with that one actually. That's where the Chasmosaurians like Triceratops and Torosaurus have prominent brow horns, and the Centrosaurians like Styracosaurus and Sinoceratops have prominent nasal horns, right?
Not quite. The best way to identify what subfamily a ceratopsid is a part of is specifically by its frill. You see, while it's true that the Chasmosaurians, like the namesake Chasmosaurus or another member like Eotriceratops, have prominent brow horns, and the Centrosaurians like Centrosaurus or, as you said, Styracosaurus have prominent nasal horns, their frill shape is actually uniquely different. Chasmosaurians have longer triangular frills, and Centrosaurians have shorter rectangular frills. This form of identification is done this way to avoid misplacing a wrong genus into the wrong subfamily. So, for example, Nasutoceratops has more prominent brow horns like the Chasmosaurians, but if you look closely at its frill, you'll see that it's short and rectangular in shape, which is a defining trait of the Centrosaurians.
Ah, okay. So to make sure I got this right, I want to look at one more example. Utaceratops looks like its nasal horns is more prominent than its brow horns, but if we were to put it next to Nasutoceratops, then we could see that its frill is significantly longer, which is a key trait of the Chasmosaurians, right?
Yeah, that about does it. Though I will go on record to say there was a big debate on whether Triceratops was actually a centrosaurian, since it had a short frill more akin to said family branch, and for a while it was considered that even after disputes by paleontologist Charles M. Sternberg, who argued that its skull features were closer in relation to Rhinoceratops and Chasmosaurus, it wasn't until the 90s that more discoveries would be made and Triceratops would be a Chasmosaurian once more. Speaking of the family branch, more notable family members of this clade besides the aforementioned are Diabloceratops, Anchiceratops, and Medusaceratops.
Another thing about the Ceratopsidae family is that the true purpose of their frills is not known. It is commonly thought that alongside their horns it would be used for defense. However, the frills in many Ceratopsid species are actually really fragile. Scientists also believe that the frills were a secondary sexual characteristic for intraspecific combat. Intraspecific combat is when two animals of the same species compete over limited resources like territory or the right to mate. So the frills could have been used for intimidation displays as well. Triceratops, whose name is Greek for three-horned face, is without a doubt one of the most recognizable and most well-known dinosaurs, especially in its depictions in battle against Tyrannosaurus rex. Triceratops is also one of the largest members of its family, coming in at about 9 meters or 30 feet long and weighing up to about 13 tons. Interestingly enough, there used to be over 17 named species of Triceratops, but there are only 2 species considered valid. They are Triceratops horridus and Triceratops prorsus. The difference between these 2 specimens can be found in their beak and nasal horns. Horridus has a small nose horn and a long beak, and prorsus has a longer nose horn and shorter beak. Also, T. horridus came before T. prorsus, as prorsus was found in younger rocks at the top of the Hell Creek Formation, while skulls found in the middle of the formation show characteristics of both species. This shows an evolution that was taking place within Triceratops over the course of 1 to 2 million years.
Another interesting fact about Triceratops was that it was previously thought to have been a growth stage for its fellow ceratopsid, Torosaurus. This theory has long since been disputed, but if you look at them side by side, you can see the similarities, for example in the frill. Torosaurus was also around the same height and length as Triceratops, if not the same height and weight. For it to be mature, it would have had to have been bigger, but as stated earlier, this theory has long since been debunked in the paleo community anyway. Triceratops was officially named and described in 1889 by Othniel Charles Marsh. When the first fossils of Triceratops were found, which were a pair of brow horns discovered by a man named George Lyman Cannon in Denver, Colorado, Marsh first thought that the horns came from rock of the Pliocene era, which was the era after the extinction of the dinosaurs. He only thought this because they looked similar to bison horns. So he had named the creature Bison alticornis. The year following this, more fragmented remains of these horns would be found, leading him to believe that Bison alticornis was actually a horned dinosaur instead of a mammalian specimen. It wouldn't be until 1889 when a more complete skull would be found, and Triceratops would receive its name.
Triceratops fossils have been recovered from a wide array of locations such as Montana, the Dakotas, and even in Alberta, Canada. The formation its bones have been recovered from is known as the Hell Creek Formation. The Hell Creek Formation is made up of late Cretaceous and early Paleocene rocks. It is one of the more studied formations and is home to several different species of prehistoric fauna such as Anzu, Pachycephalosaurus, Dakota raptor, Ankylosaurus, and the famous Tyrannosaurus rex. Side note, that preserved skin of Triceratops have been found from a specimen in Wyoming. The skin patterns consisted of hexagonal tubercles that measured from 50 to 60 millimeters across, and they also came with larger tubercles with conical projections that were 100 millimeters across.
The teeth of Triceratops were arranged in groups called batteries. These batteries consisted of 36 to 40 tooth columns on each side of each jaw and had 3 to 5 stacked teeth per column depending on size. These teeth functioned by shearing plants in a vertical to near vertical direction when feeding. This find suggested that Triceratops dined on large volumes of fibrous plants like palms or cycads. Outside of the Hell Creek Formation, Triceratops has been found in other locations such as the Denver Formation, Lance Formation, and Laramie Formation. This means that it could be found in a variety of biomes such as dry forested areas or open plains where potential fibrous plants would most likely grow, something it loved to dine on. Even though Triceratops has been depicted as a large herding animal, fossil evidence would suggest otherwise. The evidence may suggest that it actually lived in small family groups consisting of a few adults and juveniles. This would fall in line as to why Tyrannosaurus would select them as prey. If they herded in larger numbers like other horned herbivores, then it would be next to impossible for them to be preyed upon, except for a weak or sick individual.
The final note to this segment is on how Triceratops is usually depicted in media. It's usually shown with elephant or rhino-like skin where it has flabs around the joints of its forelimbs with elephant-like feet and a rather odd arch, or dare I say hump near its rear. In actuality, it didn't look like that at all. Its back was more streamlined or straightened, which I believe would better support the spine when engaged in combat with other tribes. Also, its feet possessed digits, all too similar to that of a hand, and it most certainly didn't have flabs in its skin. Flabby skin, in my opinion, would make it all too easier for a carnivore to latch onto. Still, even though Triceratops is a relatively well-known specimen, new finds are still being brought to the surface, and new theories are either being confirmed or debunked as time goes on. Only time will tell what else this magnificent herbivore has in store for paleontology. I'd like to once again thank Fossil Fool for coming on for today's episode and education on Triceratops. It was a real pleasure to have you on board, man. And just like the rest of the J-Paw squad that I have worked with and will be working with in the future, I am looking forward to working with you again. Don't forget to check him out in the description, y'all. That's going to be down below. And I'll see you on in episode 4 when we cover the king of tyrant lizards, Tyrannosaurus Rex.